Hey everybody, welcome back to Gearhead Daily. Beard, mustache on point as usual. Your boy Eric here. I'm here with Kirstin Stone, who works at Radiance, who makes shop safety supplies. And we can kick this off with, how do you even get into such a thing as shop safety stuff? How did you fall into that?
Yeah, so my background actually is all more on the performance side. So I came from that and I dealt in turbo parts and performance stuff. I ran an agency that specialized in all performance manufacturers. Then I wound up working with Comp Performance Group here in Memphis. So I moved cross country for that. And Radiance is another company here in town that had an opportunity, and they were looking to get more into the automotive space. And since that's my background, it worked out well.
And when you say comp, you mean like Comp Cams, that organization?
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, okay. And what did you do for them?
I was in marketing there, marketing coordinator, did a lot of ad coordination and ad buys, that sort of thing.
Okay.
We also did a lot of, certainly trade shows, going out to SEMA, dealing with the big outdoor car shows during the summer as well. I think that's the first time I met you was out of one of those shows.
I've never been to SEMA, so it's possible. We probably met somewhere else. I go to St. Paul Car Nationals a lot.
Yeah. That was it. That's exactly
okay.
what it was.
Oh, okay. Cool.
That setup with the 3 spots there at the trailer.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I usually take my son with me to those car events, and he at some point just goes, "Dad, every 5 feet you have to talk to somebody. There's always somebody to talk to." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's kind of what these things are about." And
right.
How do you know so many people? I'm like, well, I'm just a friendly guy. I like to talk cars. It doesn't matter who it is. So it doesn't surprise me that that's how you and I met.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things that I will always say. People ask me what it is about this industry and why I continue to work in the automotive space, and that's exactly it. I mean, you can go anywhere, and if I've met you once and I've heard something about a truck once or whatever,
Yeah.
I know that little piece about you, and that's a conversation, and there's always a follow-up on, oh, how's the car now? How's the truck now? There's always more to talk about, and there's a certain level of all car people, and I will get in trouble because I say car guys as a unisex term,
Sure.
but like car guys are car guys. No matter what you're into, there's like a certain base understanding that you can just jump in and have a conversation with somebody, and there's a certain level of, oh, I get you and you get me, and this is a good space.
No, and I agree. And you probably know people by their cars better than you actually know them by their actual name.
Right, exactly.
Hey, a blue Chevelle guy with the black hood. Yeah, okay, yeah, you, the turbo guy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's always the forever automotive meme, right?
Right, exactly. So I guess I kind of have to kind of ask the question, the kind of the I don't know if it's kind of the elephant in the room or not, but for lack of a better phrase, I'm interested in getting more women and girls into motorsports and that sort of thing. So I've shared my ideas. I'm not sure if you've seen the ideas I've got, but I'm curious to know what has been your experience, is how most adults would say it, and what's your take on it?
So I think the biggest piece of it is putting girls in seats. I think because you, from the outside of it, and especially if you grow up in a household where the garage is dad's space, and that's, dad's friends come over and that happens, that's one thing. And certainly I think that girls and women should be involved in that side too. But the fastest way to get them to care about that is to put them in a cool car and let them go out and have a good time. And whether that, in my case, the big game changer for me was being in a car on the drag strip for the first time. But for a lot of girls, that might just be the cruise route at a big show, like you're talking about, SRA and those kinds of things. That there's certainly opportunities no matter what you're looking at. In my case, I came from a family where motorsports are just a thing. My dad raced Baja trucks and
Nice.
and dirt track and stuff like that as well. he's simmered down a lot in his old age because I think that, a couple of wrecks will have that effect on you. But for me, I was kind of the black sheep in that I went towards drag racing. And said a little bit of seat time goes a long, long way in engaging people.
So, like, how do you feel like go-karts and that sort of thing? I always find those a really cheap way to get people, boys and girls, into motorsports.
Yeah, absolutely. My personal feeling on go-karts isn't particularly friendly because I'm not that great at turning.
Hence the drag racing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I rarely come out of a night at the go-kart track feeling any amount of success. I generally just feel sore.
It's rough on your forearms for sure.
Right, absolutely. And you'll be sore for that for a week. But go-karting certainly is a good way. And you can start kids so little. I was just talking to one of my coworkers who wound up racing dirt late models, but he started out in karting. And I mean, it's amazing how much driving skill you can develop in a tiny kid at that rate. He was out there every single weekend tearing it up. And that to me was just, that was so foreign because I didn't get to start that young. But I mean, it's an incredible opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I'm a big believer in, like you said, it's dad's space or whatever. And it's kind of the way it is in my place too. That's dad's garage, Right. But it's important to me to at least teach people things. I like to see myself as more of a kind of a teacher of sorts. And I have a daughter too. And she's 11 now, but at 8 or 9, I had her helping me bleed brakes. I had her, putting wheels and tires on and, feeling like, she was a part of things.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Did your dad do that for you too?
My dad actually was out of state for most of my childhood, or like to the point where I could have really gotten into it at that level. Okay. In my case, a lot of that time, that garage time and all that came from friends. When I was in high school, I started hanging out with the kids that were, definitely not going to the street races on the weekends. And and that was the opportunity where I really started to learn a lot. And those were the people that wound up helping me to pick my first, I say race car. And my first drag car, quote unquote, was not a race car. Sure. Not by any stretch of the imagination, but it was a lot of fun. And it was a lot more car than I probably should have gotten into at that point in my life, but it was a blast.
So what was your first car?
It was a 2003 Terminator Mustang.
Oh, and sweet. And how old were you when you got this thing?
19.
See, that's just not fair. That's that's a lot of car. And those things, made $450 or something, give or take?
Yeah, that car had a ported blower and the underdriven pulley and all that, and it was a blast to drive. I think that it was sitting closer to 500, and as a stick car, that's a totally different kind of driving experience. A stick car, when you're getting into drag racing and you're really learning how to drive at that point, it's basically you have the opportunity to break loose over and over and over again, which can be, that's a little sketchy. I don't know that that's a car that I'd recommend anybody else start out with, but, in my case, it was a blast. And, I had health insurance, so.
Did it cover it at the track, though? That's the question.
Yeah, I don't know. The car insurance definitely didn't, but the health insurance for me, if I'd managed to do any damage, I think I would have been good.
So I give my drag racing buddies a fairly hard time about never, going left and right, and all you got to do is go in a straight line. And they, and they take it so seriously, even though I'm giving them just kind of jabbing them a little bit about not being able to turn. Well, Eric, it takes a lot of science to get a plant of power into the geometry. Like, I get it, but you just take the joke, man. Just take the joke.
Well, I mean, there's also, it's just so different, right? I mean, the thing is, like, I know if I build the right machine and go to the drag strip, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but if you build the right machine, you can put a driver in that car that's going to go fast, right? I mean, with the exception of like somebody that really can't drive a stick car or something like that. If you put a person who's never been in a fast car at like, an autocross situation, there's just a good chance they're going to eat up a bunch of cones. Like, when you're drag racing, you internalize so much, like, heavy foot, fast is fast, right? Like
Sure.
it's the absolute opposite of anytime you're taking corners and somebody says slow is fast. I'm like, you what? It doesn't make sense. Get out of my way. I got this. And that's not the answer, actually, as it turns out.
Smooth is fast is what is my experience. But yeah, if it looks like you're going slow, you're probably going very fast. In the car, it's violent. You're like, oh God, but
Yeah.
outside, it looks like you're just having a Sunday drive.
Yeah, and that just blows my mind. The first time that I was ever on an autocross course, so truly the first lap I ever made, I missed the turn for like the second lap, and I came out of there was like, damn, I was fast. That was a really fast. And then I got up to the end of it, and the guy was like, you missed the turn in like half of the course, right?
Oh, well, yeah, it's fast if you don't ever have to run the rest of it.
Yeah, right. But I developed such a newfound respect for people that are taking turns at that rate. And autocross is one thing. When you look at like big road courses and things like that, that's a whole other step entirely. And I just can't even, that's so far outside my realm of understanding.
Well, if you ever get a chance, I would highly recommend joining like a Lemons or a Chump Car team. I did a Chump Car with Jimmy Day and the Optima guys. They invited me out for a 10-hour deal, and I got like 3 hours of seat time, and it's a good time, but it is scary. We had 100 cars. You have no idea how well these guys can drive, or how well the cars are put together. You're right there, kind of bumping mirrors with everybody. But if you do get a chance, it's a great time. It's super fun.
So that's one of the things that I was really championing at one of the companies I used to work for was we need a Lemons team, just because it's so absurd. And like from a professional perspective and as a marketing person, if you could capture the build process of that and the team out there for the weekend, I mean, that's gold. But also like it's such an insane good time race.
Oh, exactly. And I think, the PR part, the marketing part, sure, that's how you sell it to the big wigs.
Right.
But
that's how I get somebody else to pay for it.
Yeah, right. I was talking to Mike Copeland, and he was telling me that he drives AMCs, ain't my cars. And that's the cheap way to go racing is to drive somebody else's stuff. So I thought that was pretty fun.
Absolutely.
So what happened to that Terminator? Do you still have it?
I sold it to make adult decisions and buy a house. Crazy thing about those cars, so it was a multifaceted decision. If you know anything about 4.6 and specifically the Terminator motors, they develop a tick somewhere around 80,000 miles that is like indicative of impending catastrophic failure.
Ford's having engine issues? No way, right?
There's a reason I moved to the LS team, my friend.
And everybody who is smart, yes.
But there's also with that particular motor, every piece is so expensive. And so I was staring down either a giant repair bill, which would not have been a repair bill because it becomes an upgrade bill really quickly, right?
Oh yeah, once you're in there, might as well, right?
You might as well. And like when you're looking at a new set of cams is, $3,500 or whatever it is.
Oh my God.
Bananas. So instead I sold it for more than I bought it for a few years prior after absolutely just, flogging it for years. And I sold it to somebody fully aware of what the car was and what had been done to it. And he was just so excited to finally have found a Terminator because they were so tough to come by, and even more so now that one went out the door. And from that point, so for a couple of years, I drove a Mazda Speed 3. That's when I was working at the turbo parts company, Turbo Smart. And so we outfitted that car with, an upgraded front mount and bigger turbo and new exhaust intake. I mean, we were working with so many suppliers in that space that
nice. It
became kind of our little booth car. And it was a blast to drive, totally different from anything else I'd ever dealt with, and obviously not a drag car. And I knew when I sold my Terminator that I really wanted to build an LS swap Mustang. of the same, of a new edge specifically. So like the same body style, but an LS. At the time, it was a novel idea. By the time that I got around to doing it, everybody and their mother had done it.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a little lame. But I did, that car we built in a span of like 6 days for a power tour trip.
Wow.
From,
This
yeah.
is the Mustang?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we found a new edge, I think it's a 99, that had a V6 in it, but a bigger rear end, and dropped the V6 out of it and built an LS. I mean, from a bare block to a running, driving LS to drive cross country to go to power tour in about 6 days.
Nice.
That was a brutal week with not a lot of sleep. But that car is a blast, and I still have that one. It's sitting in my driveway. So,
oh, that is cool.
Yeah.
So I guess I completely lost my train of thought, but the LS swap is I mean, it's so ubiquitous these days, and so I'm picturing you in this Terminator, right? And to be fair, it's kind of every guy's, you know, I don't know if it's fantasy or whatever, but you think, oh, I'm going to get a cool car. And, you know, like all the commercials tell you, all the ladies flock, you know, right. And it ends up always being dudes who want to talk to you, right? It's, you know,
absolutely.
Ladies don't care. They don't care. So I guess being on the other side of it, though, you must have had a lot of, you know, guys coming up to you and talking to you about this Terminator. Because, I mean, to be fair, I'd come talk to you about a Terminator, too. That's pretty awesome.
Right. It's a collector car. I mean,
yeah.
So that's definitely the experience. The one thing that, I mean, I told you I call everybody a car guy, right? So any female car guy that's out, like, say, at the track, you just prepare yourself that nobody knows or nobody suspects that you know what you're talking about, right?
Oh, right.
So, you know, you have people walk up and they assume it's either not your car, which is, you know, I can't fault people for that. I really can't. I mean, I want to be able to, like, you know, be that person, but I get it, because I would have the same reaction if I'm being realistic. So, you know, but there's either that or if they do figure out that it's your car, you know, somebody else built it. It's daddy's money. It's whatever. So there's always that. But the people that stick around and hang out, I mean, that's a bunch of really genuine, cool people. It goes back to that same thing that we were talking about. You know, car guys get along because car guys get car guys. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing at, you know, your day job. When you're out at the track, there's just a certain level that you're communicating on. It's different. So it's good.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's kind of like weeding out the cool people.
Yeah.
You know, because there's going to be, no matter what group you're going to be in, whether it be cars, computers, or, you know, model airplanes, there's going to be a group of people that are going to be jerks and, you know, a-holes. And there's going to be that group that's just like, you know, come as you are, and we're totally cool with you. And it's a way to weed out kind of those folks. And when you know, like you said, they stick around for more than 10 minutes and they go, oh yeah, by the way, and they figure out that, you actually did this. And get past that BS of, you know, an internal BS. You know, that now we're cool, right? Now we're cool.
Right. And that, I think, that's not exclusive to the experience of being a woman at the track. I mean, if you are ever gone to a car meet and you're the new guy around, everybody gets that same level of treatment. So.
Oh yeah. So we when I used to work at a shop for a while, and I was kind of the you know, assistant manager of the shop, large chain. I won't name them, but there is a large chain, and we used to have techs come in, and it didn't matter, and we had mostly men who had felonies. I was the only, like, one of the few people that didn't have a felony in that place. Mostly DUIs and domestics, but hey, whatever, it is what it is. Well, truth be told. So, and we had a couple female techs as well. And the new tech, didn't matter who it was, didn't matter what certification you had, didn't matter what shop you came from. We put you on oil change duty for the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
All
we
you
just trust that you know nothing. Let's start here.
Well, and our shop had a really, really high return rate, something to the tune of like 70% customer retention.
Yeah.
Super high. And especially for our field, I think the last time we checked, the retention rate was like 20% nationwide, and ours was up in the 70%. So we had a very good reputation. And I would say to the guys, it's like I don't know you from anybody, and nothing, no offense, but until you prove yourself, I don't care what certifications you have. Until you prove yourself, I ain't letting you touch somebody's car.
Right. Absolutely.
And I ain't gonna pay for it because we worked in a relatively affluent part of town where a lot of Audis and stuff would show up, and I ain't buying a $60,000 car, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely correct.
So you've got that Mustang now, and you guys drove that to Power Tour, which is one of my goals someday.
Yeah.
To be fair, I haven't taken apart my Corvette yet, but it does have an LS motor, so there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm part of the crowd now. I LS swapped my first gen Camaro, so that was fun.
Nice.
Yeah. So what's kind of on the horizon then? You've got this Mustang now. Do you have other toys, or is that kind of it for now?
Right now, the Mustang is kind of the toy that like I said, I did a Power Tour with that one, so it's really a driver. We call it street strip, or in my terminology, fun daily. Like I could drive it every day if I want to. It's a more fun car.
Yeah, it's an LS motor. Of course you can.
Yeah. The one that's not an LS motor that I would love to build, it's still like absolutely my dream, is a Volkswagen thing with a Subaru Boxer motor in it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That would be weird.
It's weird. It's definitely the most common swap that you see in those, because most people don't want to deal with an air-cooled Volkswagen motor indefinitely.
Right.
That is just forever at the top of my list, and something that I'll get around to eventually. And I would love to build an old F100 that is like really a driver, like really, really,
yep.
Like air conditioning, ready to go. Like I could daily it every single day. That's the other one that's like huge to me. As far as like realistic projects immediately on the timeline, nah, nothing new. There's nothing new. I'd like to be able to get back out on Power Tour again, maybe next year.
Okay.
This year was it all came up pretty quick with moving jobs and vacation times and all that realistic adult stuff, which is lame. It gets in the way of a fun car time. And then I don't have any sort of off-road vehicles, but I've been having a little bit of insane off-road fun with some friends that do. So kind of playing in that overland space, that's something that I'm loving. I've been a hiker for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Like backpacking and all of that. And it feels like the car guys backpacking trips. And I'm loving that. So that's kind of a new thing. And there's a trip planned in October. We're headed to the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. So that ought to be a blast.
That's a lot of fun. It's like taking Jeeps out there and kind of going some off-road, or is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, it's all off-road the whole trip, and that one will be 4 or 5 days on the trail. So
are you in California currently?
I'm not. I'm in Tennessee.
Okay, because I was going to say I'm feeling some redneck vibes coming up here. and
it's I mean, the funny thing is, it's not. So here, there's a lot of emphasis on like yee mud riding, which is a very different thing.
Right.
The overlanding stuff is a different market. That's the difference between Patagucci and yee.
Right.
It's a different monster.
Well, yeah. So I say that a little bit tongue in cheek because I'm originally from Springfield, Missouri. So
yeah. Oh no, I'm not offended by it.
Yeah, you get me around some Southern people, and my Southern will come out a little bit. Yeah. And so I say that a little bit tongue in cheek with the redneck thing, but so I think it's interesting because if you add now the off-road component to it, like you said, turning left and right is a challenge, but now you're adding the Z-axis, going up and down, and that's like, nope, I'm out. Can't do that one.
I told you, I'm loving the experience, but I am not I don't have an off-road truck, and I'm not an off-road driver. I will admit it scares me. Like driving off-road is a totally different, it's so far outside my normal realm of expertise that like I'm happy to be there. And I'm sure that at some point in the next couple of years, I'm going to get to a point where I'm ready to try my hand. Man, right now it's just all new. It's all new information and it's kind of blowing my mind.
Well, it's amazing how varied the kind of automotive world is.
Yeah.
Because you've got everything from your kind of daily driver, kind of putt around town, Fiat Punto or whatever, and then you've got specialized mud trucks that are designed to go in deep mud, and then you've got rock crawlers, and then and then you've kind of got your towing vehicles, which is a whole nother realm of things.
Right.
So I mean, it kind of blows my mind how varied some of this stuff is.
Yeah, I've been doing a bunch of content writing in the off-road space in the last 6 months or so, and it has been absolutely blowing my mind how much I didn't realize that market was really segmented. And certainly with some of the places I've worked in the past, we dealt with people in every one of those spaces, but I wasn't dealing with them one-on-one enough to totally pick up the differences in the trucks, and it's pretty incredible. I mean, just because somebody says they're into off-roading, like that could mean a million things.
Yeah, I mean, there's I don't know if it's big near where you guys are, but here in Minnesota, the UTVs are pretty big here.
Oh, yeah. So that is something that
it's a whole other realm.
Yeah, and that's something that, so coming from the industry space, they've absolutely taken the aftermarket by storm. I mean, every manufacturer that touches anything off-road or electronic or, everybody's got parts for that. And they have revived an entire segment of the industry that people were kind of wondering what was next for.
Yeah.
Not that off-road has ever totally slipped away, but there was a lot of question as to with the new, this is always the question in the aftermarket is how much longer does the industry really have? How much longer does the next generation care about performance? How much, and side-by-sides, that was the easiest answer that's ever come to any of us and completely like hit us in the face by surprise. It was just, the side-by-sides are here and everybody and their mother has them. They're willing to spend as much on a new Honda as they are a toy. Oh, yeah. And if they're willing to do that, guess what else they're willing to do? Pay for every upgrade under the sun. I mean, it is an insane, from the professional side of me gets very excited about that because it's a game changer for the industry.
Well, you bring up a good question, which since you're in that marketing PR world, and I'll be honest, I know a little bit, but not a ton. So I'm curious to know, what have you learned? What's your kind of big takeaway, or kind of what's your experience doing this in the automotive world? What works? What doesn't work? I don't know. I guess I'm looking for something. I don't know what I'm asking for. So
I think that the biggest piece of marketing and PR information, if you internalize any piece of it throughout a career in that aftermarket space, is that people buy parts from people. And I know that sounds like the most rudimentary marketing, just BS, and it's not. You can throw all the data in the world at somebody, and you can have the best engineers on the planet, and you can have cooler videos, but the the customers are so much more likely to actually engage with a brand where there's a face on the internet that they like, or if there's the people on the phone are relatable. I mean, in my experience, the guys that are spending a little bit more time on the phone with the customers and actually kind of like swapping war stories, those are the guys that will continue to be successful in the industry. They're making friends and selling parts along the way.
Well, it's funny. I have a few. So the other side of that is the guys complain to me like, our customers are calling me all the time. I can't get any work done, and that sort of thing. So how do you? I mean, what would you tell those guys?
Hire a sales admin. I mean, that's why. I know that that's not a possibility for everybody.
Well, yeah.
There's always somebody who can. There's some piece of your job that someone else can do. And it's probably the data entry or the responding to emails or whatever that is. But a lot of guys, especially when I had my agency, I dealt with a lot of small businesses and very small manufacturers and kind of mom and pop shops. And a lot of those guys are the engineer and also the person who's responding to the emails and also the person that's answering the phone. And if you can bring in, not that I'm supporting abusing college students for the purpose, but like if you bring in an intern who can help you for minimum wage do Facebook posts and answer phones and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, the stuff that is really easy to let fall by the wayside or where it's easy to get short with people. And if you continue to focus on the thing that you're great at, then that puts you in so much better of a place. And the person who's answering the phone just has to be the friendly face that they're happy to talk to. And they have to be obviously knowledgeable enough to do the job.
Yeah, for sure. People can get through that pretty easily. Right.
But you know, in my mind, I never want the customers to stop calling. That's never the right answer, right? The customers are calling too much. You know, put another butt in the seat.
Okay. Yeah, the complaint was that they were not actually getting any real work done and just answering tech questions rather than, you know, selling something. They're just answering other people's problems, basically.
Right. I mean, and so I think that's always a reality because of the time that I spent at Comp. You know, they've got an office with, I would say it's set up for 50, 60 guys to sit there and phone bank all day.
Right.
And of course, in their instance, they've got 12 or 15 brands in-house. And it's fairly technical stuff. I mean, you just can't expect people to do really like powertrain components without major tech advice and input at some point along the line.
You get experience in that realm. Camshafts and the like are pretty complicated pieces of equipment.
Right. But I mean, those are also sales opportunities. I think that's one of the pieces that people forget about. Yes, you're answering the tech call. Yes, it's annoying because you can't do the other thing that you're trying to do during your day. But if you give that guy the friendly tech help that he's looking for, he's going to tell his friend, you know, I had this issue. It's kind of frustrating, but in the end, I called them and we worked it out and everything's great now. And, you know, the guy seemed really cool. That's all it takes to be the referral for the next sale. And it's so easy to forget when you're dealing with tech calls. And I've been there. I used to work a tech line, right? So it's so easy to forget when you're in that moment, and the customers can be frustrating, right? It's so easy to forget that guy's still a customer, and that if he's not a customer yet, he will be soon, assuming that you're not an asshole. But I mean, I've definitely seen people where it gets so easy to slip that way because you're trying to make sales too. You know, I get it.
Right. Yeah, you're trying to do a little bit of both.
Right.
One of the I have a theory, and I'd like to share it with you, and I'd like to get your take on it. I think everybody in the world, not just automotive, but everybody in the world has kind of like a red thread that follows them through their life. And if you look at every decision they've ever made, and if you look at every choice they've done and career they've taken, hobby they've done, everything kind of flows together. And I'll give you a second to think about yours, because mine is I'm just interested in knowing and building. I like knowing things. I'm interested in how things work and how to kind of make them slightly better. So if you follow my Facebook page at all, you see me building random things that just seem random, like, but to me that makes total sense. Like, oh yeah, I know how to do this, and now I know how to do that, and I taught myself how to do this. So I'm always on the lookout for how to learn something new. That's kind of the red thread in my life. What would you say if you had to take a guess what yours is?
I mean, it might be the gimme answer, but in my case, it's been cars for a long, long time, or I should say motorsports. I almost changed the college that I went to at the last minute because I learned that motorsports outside sales was a thing that you could do, that you could go hang out and talk to people in that way. And, you know, I thank God for my mother stepping in and going, you're not going to not go to the school that we've already paid a giant deposit for. You're going to go to the college, you know. But while I was in school, I got into cars and racing. I actually, before I even graduated from college, was working for a performance manufacturer. And that led me to, the physical moves that I've made in my life. It's certainly, for better or worse, impacted my financial choices. I mean, there's a shop that used to be in existence that's no longer in the import space called Dent Sport Garage. Mm-hmm. And they had an entire campaign complete with t-shirts and the whole thing that says cheap rent, fast cars. And that's, that's the same. I've kind of followed that model throughout my adult life through purchasing. It was like, I have to make sure that I have enough disposable income to do the thing that really brings me joy. I moved cross country to work for an industry. I mean, truly an icon. Comp cams is,
they're huge.
I've made choice after choice that has absolutely been dictated by my own desire to play with cars, which seems so reductive, but it is what it is.
Cool. So and what is it about just cars in general? Why? I mean, people who are not into the automotive world would look at this and go, what's the big deal?
Yeah. People that don't work in the automotive industry more often than not say, do you know how much that job pays in a normal industry?
Yeah, right. For-profit company. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think that in my case, and I say it again and again, but cars and the automotive industry in particular is such an appealing space for me to kind of live and work in because of the people. I was talking to a sorority sister of mine who was going to buy a new car because her air conditioning had gone out, right? And I'm thinking, like, that's kind of that's normal, right? Like, to a car person, I've driven cross country in June and July with no air conditioning. And it's just like, look how cool this story's going to be. Like there's situations that would cause not car people to freak out, and to a car guy, it's an adventure, right? I mean,
no good story starts with, and everything went fine.
Yeah. So a couple of months ago, when I was at home in SoCal, I had planned a trip out to, if you're familiar with Barstow or the /X Ranch. And we were going to go out and do this big loop at night, and it was going to be a blast. And we got all of 5 miles from the house, still on not residential, but industrial streets. We're on side streets. Truck breaks, and we're parked in the corner of an industrial lot, like the grass, they've got the landscape corner that says Jim Bob's Industrial Park.
Right.
And I'll send you the pictures. It's pretty absurd. This fully outfitted truck is just parked, right? I mean, up on the curb, and the cops are showing up, and they're wanting to know what we're doing, right? Like, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. We're like, I didn't go here on purpose. The truck broke, the steering broke on the truck, and just puts us up on this curb. So take the truck, tow the truck back to the house, go out and have a good time anyway, and everything's fine. Not in the truck because
it's broken. Yeah.
And the next day the truck gets fixed. Decide to go take attempt number 2, right? So we get out to actually past Barstow. We're out in the desert. Go to air down the tires. My friend stands up from the tires and he's like, I got bad news. And I'm like, what do you mean you got bad news? Like, we just came back from bad news. That was yesterday, the first time we tried to do this. It's like, there's oil everywhere. There's oil all over the bottom of the truck. I don't know what it is. No. Yeah, it's like, we can't do this. We got to tow it back. So at this point, we're now, 150 miles from the house. So there's a very long tow truck drive, but it was, the second one in 48 hours. To a normal, not car person, this is hell, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But to anybody who's kind of living for that adventure, it was a blast. I mean, it was stupid. We didn't get to accomplish the thing that we wanted to do, but it was still a ridiculous good time. And it takes a special kind of person and definitely a car guy to be able to go, it was an adventure. And that's why automotive is fun for me, because it's just people with a certain different kind of spirit of adventure, and it's a blast.
I think there's something to that, and I think that spirit of adventure travels over. I was recently I went traveling to New Hampshire with my family. Wife and 2 kids are there, and similar thing. It was a couple weeks ago when they had that heat wave where it was like 100 degrees, and they were having the NASCAR race out at Loudon, and my wife talked me out of it, but I wanted to go. And we had this cabin, and when I say rustic cabin, I mean rustic cabin. Like there was no AC, there was a fire pit, a fireplace, and that's kind of it. I mean, the nicest thing they had was a fridge, and that was it, and running water. And my wife, and it's hot at night. It's 89 degrees at night, and the wife says to me, she says, "Well, let's just go to a hotel and we'll get some AC and that sort of thing." And I said, "No." I said, when the kids are 25, 30 years old, what are they going to remember? They're going to remember, oh, the concierge brought me some lobster from... They're going to remember, you remember how hot that was?
Yeah.
It's insane. How did we live? That's the stuff they're going to remember. And she looks at me and goes, oh, you're totally right. And we stayed.
Yeah. And even with that, I'm sure it was a blast. I mean, there might have been some sweaty misery moments, but by and large, when you look back on it, that's not what you'll remember.
Yeah, and 100 yards off the cabin was one of the many rivers there. So we spent most of our time hanging out in the river.
Yeah, exactly.
And skipping rocks and doing that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's that sense of, this may not have gone right, but I got one hell of a story at the end of the day, You sit down and go, let me tell you what happened, okay?
Yeah, you're not going to believe this.
So Billy Bob and I, right? Those sorts of stories, and I think those are great. So I think along with that kind of same red thread that kind of follows everybody through their life. And yes, there was a point in my life where I had the same thought. Well, I could buy that house, but that's $300 less a month in car parts, right?
Yeah.
And it's like a junkie, You never have any money. So I also think sometimes everybody kind of has like one epic story of kind of either misery, triumph, failure. Do you have one for the audience who is still listening at this point?
That meets with my red thread.
Yeah.
So the first year I did Power Tour, it was actually, the bill was footed by SEMA, and I was there with the Young Executives Network, and that was a blast. The first time I did Power Tour on my own was so. I hope that I don't offend you. I know I'm going to offend some people. I hate G-bodies so much. But the first time that
they're a rowdy bunch. So
they're not my fave. So, but my boyfriend at the time had gotten an old Cutlass, and it was LS swapped, and picked it up from a friend. It had $300 and 10 minutes worth of work that it needed, and it was ready to go. But we last minute decided to kind of cannonball across the country to do Power Tour.
Nice.
And that was an adventure. So we were trucking across the country with another friend of ours who was starting the Power Tour at the same time. And we're in this absolute just pile. Right? So that when I was like blogging and marketing the project, I called it the Ultima Pile. And I actually had like badges made for it that said that, and
nice.
It was a little silly, but car has no AC, and it's got this, what we later learned was a Chinese knockoff fuel pump. So the fuel pump keeps overheating, boiling fuel, and we're trucking across, we're headed to, I can look.
You got the long hauler ward there.
Wisconsin. We're going to Wisconsin, which means we're cutting up from Southern California through like Utah and Colorado, and like a million degrees in the desert in June, and up and down hills. And the car is overheating, and the fuel is boiling, and nothing. Like we had to stop. I think that first day we went into Denver, which is already like a 12-hour drive from SoCal on a good day. And that day we left at 5:00 in the morning, and we got into Denver at 3:00 in the morning, 4:00 in the morning. I mean, it was brutal. It was almost a 24-hour day, and it was awful. And it was stopping and crawling under the car in the middle of the desert 17 times. I mean, 17 times, like during daylight hours. Like it was an absolute nightmare. And by the time that we got up and like back up into the Rockies, right? So the temperature drops dramatically.
Yep.
And this is not the smartest adventure I've ever been a part of, but it was a good time. So
those are the best kind.
Yeah, right. So we're driving up, like coming in towards like Vail.
Yep.
And I mean, they talk about the black dog, right? Like when you get too tired and you're driving and you react to something that's not actually there because your brain is literally just hallucinating a black dog on the side of the road, right?
Yep.
So we're already at that point, and we get up in the elevation in the Rockies, and we have to roll the windows up. And it's at that moment that we realize, oh, the exhaust is leaking into the cabin of the car.
Oh.
So now we're like, oh no, roll the windows back down. So we're like bundled up in blankets, chugging up and down the mountains, coming into Colorado. More carbon monoxide in our systems than we ever should have been driving with. And it was an absolute nightmare of a day, but it was also a blast. And it was, one of those storybooks. We came around one corner, and we had radios between us and the friend's car. And and the guy comes on the radio and goes, "Hey, did you guys see all those deer?" And we're like, "Deer? What deer?"
Uh-oh.
And there was apparently 4 deer in the road. This is what I'm saying. This is not the smart part of the adventure, right? Like carbon monoxide and sleep deprivation. And apparently there was a bunch of deer in the road that we didn't see coming into the mountain. So
Ooh.
Not a great, yeah, that's not a prescriptive story, but it was a good story to tell after we had lived through it.
And you made it to Wisconsin. I can imagine only how many sticks of deodorant you had to go through.
So many. That is, as you know, so that trip, where do we end? Oh yeah. So what's better than that is that one ended in Baton Rouge. So we get to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin in the summer, that's pretty dang beautiful. Like Madison in the summer is one of my favorite places to spend time. But as you start
you get like 3 good weeks, and then it's just hell for the rest of 3 weeks. Yeah. For the rest of the year.
But as we start dropping down, every day of Power Tour is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And like, we went through like Birmingham. We had a day there. And like Birmingham in late June is just not a blast. Baton Rouge in late June is brutal. I mean, that was, on Power Tour, you learn really quickly that the cars at every stop are pretty well the same. There's going to be a few new guys that show up.
Sure.
But the car show is not where it's at. Like someplace fun with air conditioning is really where it's at after a long day. Because, the cruise, you're around the cars all day and you have a blast. But once you get actually to the show, it's pretty much the same people. It's a heck of a trip. That's over and over again. I'll recommend that for anybody who's a car guy.
That is something that I definitely want to do, and they've never really come super close. But I think I'm just going to have to do it where, like you do it, you just drive across country, you start there, and you go. And I don't know, maybe I've lost a bit of that sense of adventure in me because I bought a Corvette, and you just push the button and it works.
You're gonna have to buy some white sneakers and some jean shorts next, friend.
Oh, so I'm not wearing jean shorts. I'm wearing shorts right now, but they're black. Sorry. So, I don't have the gold chain or the white, wife beater or anything like that.
You need the leather, the Corvette jacket.
So I found, I love the Pilati shoes.
Yeah.
They make Corvette ones, and they're yellow and black. And I was just going to do it as a goof because they were like $30. I should have done it. I should have bought them.
Those are choices you're making, my friend. It starts out as a joke, and before you know it, you're a full-blown Corvette guy.
Oh, see, yeah, and you got me here because there's some of it that's so true, but in the same realm, I love those old guys in the big white shoes, and the Corvette hat that has it's straight across, not because they're hip, but because they don't know how to curve it.
Because they don't know how to use a baseball.
Yeah, right. But the old guys are great because they sell, 200,000 of these things every year. 199,995 of them get parked and never driven. Or if they do, it's like, 5 miles an hour. They never get any accidents. They rarely get caught for speeding.
Right.
And they never get stolen. So my insurance is cheaper on my close to 700 horsepower Corvette is cheaper than my truck.
Well, that's disgusting. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I'm married. I have kids. I whatever. Yeah. But I got all those other things going for me. But yeah, that's
kind of crazy. I never considered that.
The insurance is crazy cheap on a car that can do 200 miles an hour.
Yeah,
that's mostly plastic.
That's weird, but I mean that's sweet for the guys that are actually using them and driving them.
Yeah, no, I put a few miles on it. As a matter of fact, I might just go for a drive today. As a matter of fact, enjoy the nice day.
There you go.
So yeah. As we kind of wrap up here, I've appreciated your time. It's been great catching up with you and talking about some cool stuff. Is there anything you want to wrap up with? Any words of wisdom for those who may want to get into the automotive world or maybe get into marketing? That's your expertise. Any advice you would give to folks?
All right, so I'll drop a little bit of the marketing piece first. If you think that you want to get into marketing, learn statistics and data analysis. It's not the exciting stuff that everybody thinks it is on a day-to-day basis. On the automotive space and on anybody who's looking to get into that industry, I had a very wise man. John Menzler was one of my first contacts that I really communicated with in the automotive industry, and he told me, if you're even halfway thinking about getting involved, just go for it. Jump in, volunteer, figure it out from there. Mm-hmm. And that has absolutely changed the course of my career and the way that I've chosen to be involved with the industry, and I'm very grateful for that advice. So just jump in.
You brought up a good point, and I want to add something to that. So I'm going to tie it to what you said earlier, which is, as much as the automotive is about cars, it is about people too.
Yep.
And you had a contact. This person took an interest in you and gave you some advice. And there have been a lot of really good people who have taken pity on me, I guess, is kind of a nice way to put it, and realized that I'm a moron and have helped me navigate a lot of this stuff. So to your point, it is a lot about people and getting to know people, introducing yourself. This is me. This is what I'm interested in, and making contacts that and I think it's a regular business thing too, but at least in the automotive world, I can, we were talking right before this got started, I may not know anybody at a certain company, but you did, and you referred me to this person, and this person totally helped me out, even though this person didn't know me from anybody.
Yeah.
So there is that. Sorry, go ahead.
To be semi-promotional for a moment, I mean, I chair the SEMA Young Executives Network.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And that is a huge portion of my involvement in the industry, but that's what it is, right? I mean, that's our entire purpose, is to bring professionals together to meet other professionals, to build their own career or to make more sales or to whatever, that is for them. But the networking, I will say, in the automotive industry goes back to that, the people and car guys thing, right? Like, networking for us is generally just a bunch of guys standing around. There might be some talk about sales or whatever. How's the company doing? But then it really quickly devolves back to, I heard you were building a Corvette. How's that going? It just quickly becomes people hanging out and talking about cars, and just those conversations can really change things, both, for career advancement or for, knowing the person that has the access to whatever car part your buddy needs at a moment's notice,
Yeah, and one of the things that do you know? And I have to give credit where credit's due. Do you know Jessica Kirshner?
I'm familiar with the name. I don't know her personally.
I think her family runs the family events stuff, so Street Machine Nationals.
Oh yeah. I've met her.
Yeah, super nice lady. She is super. Always answers my emails, which is always. But yeah, so, and one of the things she taught me, and I'll throw this out there for everybody else, is there's when you go to car shows and things like that, she said, you know what, I'm so sick of talking about business that I just want to talk to people about being people.
Yeah.
And I kind of was really eager in the beginning, and I wanted to get up there and be like, oh, look at me, and I want to talk about cars, and like I was getting this weird vibe, and it never made sense until she said, I'm sick of talking about business. Let's just, tell me about your family. Tell me about your projects. Tell me about whatever. Just anything but work.
Yeah. And that is something that I'll say, I'd call that expert level sales advice too. I mean, just as, it certainly is something that you can say, I was really sick of talking to people about business, but the business comes from the personal relationships, and,
Oh, yeah.
calling people up to say, hey, heard that, the wife is pregnant. How's the new baby?
Yeah.
that little bit of personal consideration goes so far.
You're totally right. And every time I call somebody and I'm, trying to, since I write books and things, I hit up places for parts every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I do that. I do exactly what you just said, which is I'll call them up and I'll call, hey, Steve, how are the kids? I heard he's having a tough time with math. How's that going? And by the way, can I have that part?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's something that just that little bit can make such a difference in the way that you're received on the other end of that line, especially, you're talking about builds and, sponsored parts and all of that. Just remember that there's people on the other end of that too. And that those people hear people like you that want something from them 17 times a day. So.
Exactly. And I had a really good mentor, Scott Parkhurst, if you're familiar with him. He mentored me. Like, again, I've had a lot of people take pity on me and realize that I'm stupid, and really walked me through this stuff.
Yeah.
And, so I have to give credit where credit's due. Scott helped me, taught me the way of the world, and I've tried to pass it on a little bit of, you have to build those relationships, and you have to build a reputation, a good reputation, and it goes a really long way. And it's not as big of a business or an industry as people think it is.
No,
people talk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's, not to give away the secrets, but we have entire Facebook groups of nothing but automotive aftermarket marketing professionals that just ask things like, hey, anybody sponsored this guy? The proposal seems a little sketchy.
Yes. Yeah, I think aren't we on the same private Facebook group for that too?
There's a few. That's not the one where we talk about you.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow, dang.
Yeah. It would be weird if you were.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing is if you're going to make fun of me, just let me in on the joke. That's all I ask. That's all I ask.
Amen. Amen. Yeah.
Well, hey, Kirstin, I really appreciate your time. This has been a lot of fun for me. I'll have you back on, as time goes on, if you've got some cool stuff you want to talk about. But hey, I really appreciated your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. It's been a blast.